Am I the asshole for wanting to abandon my kids? I'm 25 and I'm the caretaker but not the legal guardian to my brother who is 16, and sister who is 14. They are practically my kids. When I was 16, our dad died and him dying caused my mom to become mentally unstable and she turned to drugs and alcohol. We became homeless. Living in motels and random guys' houses and shit. My mom didn't care. When I finally turned 18 I got my own place and brought them along. We were in a better place but it was also really tough. My mom provided nothing. I worked full-time job and along with odd jobs to make we had a home and food. In essence, I became their mom and they were my kids. For a long time we only had each other. My mom drifted from state to state. She only reached out when she wanted money or a place to sleep. 10 years later and she has a job and is mostly sober. She has a nice condo and recently got a brand new Mercedes. The way she got these things are not because she worked really hard at her job, if you get what I mean. Even with all her shiny new shit, she doesn't give me any money. No child support, nothing. If they asks for money, she cash apps them, but as for giving me child support, nope. Again, I'm not their guardian, so I tried to get money from her in court. I didn't want like CPS to get involved and have them taken away. Anyway, all this to say I recently got engaged. We've been talking about living arrangements. My fiancé owns his house while I rent, so for obvious reasons, I would live with him. The problem is that it's about an hour away and it's kinda small for the four of us. Not only that, but my brother loves his school and doesn't want to switch. I imagine my sister feels the same way. My fiancé has offered reasonable accommodations. We could make it work and still have them attend their school, but in all honesty, I don't care. I don't want to be their mom anymore. I want my mom to take them and figure out new living arrangements. I spent nearly a decade caring for them. I don't want to do it anymore. I scrimped and saved every cent and nearly lost my mind doing so. Even worse, my goddamn hair turned gray thanks to the stress of it all. I'm kidding, but in all seriousness, I'm done. I want to go play house with my soon-to-be husband and maybe have some tiny humans of my own. I told my maternal grandma this and she was irate. Told me that I was just like my mom for trying to abandon them. She doesn't trust my mom and for good reason. This lifestyle she has probably won't last. My siblings are at extremely high risk of being homeless again. It scares the hell out of me. It makes me sad too. I love them so much. I know it doesn't seem like it but I really do. And my sister does not want to go back to my mom. I'm kinda all she knows. But to say I'm tired and resentful is an understatement. I'm not their mom. That's it, full stop. I told my grandma this and she said I was an asshole. So here I am. Am I an asshole for wanting to abandon my siblings? And #X200B. Edit. To clear up some things and add context. I don't get how Reddit works, so hopefully, I'm not violating rules. 1. Why can't grandma do it? Or anyone else? She's old and mean. As some have said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, which seems to be true. Dad's side of the family, I have no contact with. They live in another state. There really isn't anyone else. 2. You're really going to abandon them? No abandoning, no street corner, no boxcar. They'd just go back to their mom, who still has custody of them. She is sober from drugs, drinks only on occasion. She does have a home, and food, and a car. She has the things she needs to take care of my siblings. My thought process is that they could move in, and we'd see how it went. If she couldn't do it, of course, they could move back in with me. 3. But why can't I just keep doing it? It's hard. Some of you are parents and come with fuller perspectives. Some of you are like me and had to take the parent role, so you guys know. But for some, you cannot imagine the anxiety and stress I've experienced. There was this immense fear that I would fail them and it drove me to the bottom. I got help, and we all do go to therapy. So I do have that covered, guys. I've talked to my therapist and we've been watching my mom. Is she the most competent parent? That's up to debate, but she did raise me, and I'm only a little messed up, so maybe they'd be okay. Like I said before, we've watched her get sober and get back on her feet and get the things she needs. She's trying, I guess. Maybe not for them IDK. 4. Why can't you make it work if your fiancé is willing to make accommodations? The accommodations were to reduce our wedding to finish the basement for the kids to have rooms and buy my brother a car to drive themselves to school. It is selfish, but I want a wedding. I know we can't have everything we want. Believe me, I am aware of the harsh realities of life. But if my mom can have nice things, can't I too? That's my thinking. Childish, yeah, and selfish, yeah. An asshole? That's for you guys to decide. But it's what I want. It's a lot of responsibility, and if you can imagine for a moment, wouldn't you want to run away and play house? 5. How did no one call CPS on you? No one cared. I worked hard to make it so my siblings were taken care of. They were always cleaned, fed, and at school. We had the same doctor, so she knew our family, but she would have to call my mom and get verbal consent over the phone to treat. There's a law called the McKinney-Vento Act. It allows homeless students to register for school without parents. I also want to say that I worked every system, forge my mom's name, pretend to be her on the phone. No one cared to confront us. If they did, which was rare, I'd say she was a flight attendant and was gone for work, and I was just watching kids for a few days. Guys, no one cared to call. 6. How did I afford it? I receive SSI. They're my dad's retirement benefits. Plus I worked and I'm not above asking for help. We went to food banks, and the school provided coats and vouchers, and this church we're not affiliated with but still wanted to help us. They have provided us with furniture and more clothing vouchers, and Christmas every year for them. So I have had help. My siblings do have jobs. They are only required to pay for their phone bill. The rest of their money is theirs. Meaning it's spent on food. 7. Should I have called CPS? Yeah, but think back to when you're 18. I was scared and stupid. We looked at CPS as bad. They were going to take them away from me, so I worked on flying under the radar. All I had were these kids, and I couldn't lose them. In retrospect, would it probably have been better for them? Probably. I really didn't know any better. And #X200B. You are not the asshole. Your mother managed to fly completely off the rails and give her legal responsibility of her children to one of her actual children. If your grandmother's so worried about them, she can take them. You deserve a life, and to have it taken from you so cruelly is just vicious. The kids did nothing wrong, but neither did you. You are literally not their mother. Parentification is abuse. Full fucking stop. How are these kids not in the care system if you're not their guardian? You've taken this responsibility, so you do need to see it through. How the heck do you think they'll be looked after by their mom? You cannot abandon them, but get help. Huge respect to you nonetheless, but can't really put a judgment, but you want to be careful with how you go about this. Parentification fucking sucks, and you've sacrificed so much, but, if I'm reading this right, you are neither their guardian, nor has any legal body gotten involved. Yes? As much as it sucks putting kids into the system, I feel like it is long past due that someone was informed. At this point, things are going to get hairy. You're not responsible for your siblings in the least, but it's also pretty brutal to build that stable scaffolding and then rip it away without anything for them to fall back on because no one with the power to do anything knows about their situation. It's time to get CPS and the courts involved. You're almost there. Your brother is 16 and you should mentally ready him to get a job and support himself, move out in 2 years. Same with your sister in 4 years. Can your fiancé and you adjust for 2 years? The house will be emptier once your brother moves. You're still so young. Absolutely not the asshole for what you're feeling, but I don't trust your mom with taking care of them. But definitely you need her to pay some money. Can't the grandmom ask her? Or your siblings ask directly? Not the asshole, but can you live with yourself if they end up in the system or homeless? I can't imagine what you have been through. I'm sure playing house feels like the escape you have been searching for. What I'm more worried about is what will happen to those kids if you do leave and how that may affect you long term. Not the asshole. You were abused and you can't take being a parent to your siblings anymore when you haven't even been able to live your own life because of your mother. It's not abandonment. It's you making your mother face the consequences of her actions and taking your life back. You were forced to step up and be a parent at an age where the biggest concern of most people is the cute guy at school and getting their driver's license. It is okay to feel resentment and being tired of this. But you should really think about the potential future of your siblings before you give them to your mother. I would try to get CPS and a court involved so that you can at least get money from her. If she can buy a Mercedes, then she can also sell this car and pay you back. Soft, you are the asshole. What you went through sounds awful, but you can't give your siblings the safety and security of a loving home then take it away. Your fiancé should understand that you're a package deal and accommodate all of you into his life. You should also get legal advice on the laws where you live. You've been caring for the kids for a long time, and if they've been living with you full time, you should be able to receive some kind of payment. Am I the asshole for insisting that my wife's friends stay in a hotel? Most of this took place a few years ago, but it's needed for context. My wife's best friend is a gay guy. A few years ago he got a partner and it was a big deal as he'd never had a long-term partner before, but as he lives quite a few hours away, a weekend visit seemed like the best way to meet. Our spare room has a bookshelf with the remaining items of my nerdy collection. I'd sold most of it to help buy us the house, and these were items that were the most valuable to me sentimentality and value-wise. I don't mind people staying in the room. I just ask them to be mindful of my stuff. So he and his partner came for a weekend. Things were perfectly fine. His boyfriend was very shy but seemed like a nice guy. Unfortunately, I got the news that my gran had a really bad fall and it caused an aneurysm. She was given an estimate of a few days before she would pass away. I was obviously upset and went to see her in hospital. My wife wanted to come with me, so we made sure her friends were okay and left them to it late afternoon. We were in the hospital for about 8 hours as she slipped in and out of consciousness and seems in terrible pain. Finally we decided to go home and get some rest before going back the next day. When we got there are some clothes on the floor in the living room and our rabbit is looking very strange and huddled in a corner. A few minutes later her friends come running out of the bathroom with towels and disappear upstairs to the spare room. At that moment I didn't care as I was exhausted and went to bed. In the morning my wife went to explain that we would be going back to the hospital and they said that was great because the new boyfriend needed to go to the ER as he had a really bad pains. That worked out as we didn't know what to do with them till they could get their train. This meant we could drop them off as it was the same hospital and the train station was nearby. He got the all clear and they left. My gran hung on for a week before passing, thankfully in peace. However, when cleaning the spare room I found that several of my things had been tampered with. 3 model kits that were broken, not unfixable, but the worst was that a mint-in-box vintage transformer had been opened. I was incredibly pissed off by this and ended up ranting about how there were selfish jackasses. My wife said she didn't want to complain to them because she didn't want them thinking I was homophobic. Which I replied that I don't care what they think. Their sexuality had zero to do with it. It was their lack of respect. I calmed down and eventually just dropped it. However, it's now 2 years later and they want to come stay again now COVID restrictions are easing off. I said that was fine, but they would need to get a hotel as I'm not having them stay in the spare room. My wife thinks I'm being an asshole for this and didn't want to tell them to do that. Am I the asshole here? Edit. Okay, so initially I cut the post down for word count. People are asking about the weird bit I left in about coming home and the rabbit. Okay, so it seems like they had been having sex in the living room. Also, the boyfriend's injury seemed to be a cut on his scrotum that he was worried would be infected. Now our rabbit can get bitey when spooked, so it seems like he got a fright while they were doing it and bit the boyfriend on his nuts. This is the bunny boy. His name is Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. Don't mess with him. Edit 2 Electric Boogaloo. Thanks for the support everyone. It's helped me clear my head as feel like I'm definitely seeing things clearly. I had a talk Eve. My wife got home and she was a bit less freaked out. I think I was angry when she told me they want to come back. I reminded her of all the antics and she started to sound much more understanding. She asked me to help her craft a message to them to explain things. We listed our problems with their last visit, apart from the sex and rabbit attack. And she also said she hadn't actually confirmed anything with them yet. We will see what their reply is. Edit the 3rd. We got a reply back. It is very apologetic. They apparently forgot to bring it up due to them being worried about the infected cut. But it seems that the model kits were accidentally knocked over by a bag and that they meant to tell me. Also, the boyfriend has ADHD and really bad impulse control. He had recently changed his meds and was a bit out of sorts. Which I could see he definitely was a bit odd. Anyway, he picked up one of transformers and flicked the box open before he knew what he was doing. There was cut tape, so it wasn't as easy as it sounds to just flick open. He never actually pulled the toy out and stopped and put it back right away, not realizing that the box got a bit of damage from it. They have said they wanted to stay at a hotel anyway as my wife is pregnant and they didn't want to be an inconvenience like last time. Also maybe fear of rabbit. They also said they would compensate me for the damages, but I've not actually told them how much the figure was worth. I think they will freak out when they realize, but I wouldn't charge them full cost. Just what the loss of value is. Obviously no talk of the weird other stuff, but this is a good start. Not the asshole. Your wife needs to be on your side. Oh, my fellow collector, so not the asshole. They knew your stuff was precious, you had explained it to them, and while you were undergoing a crisis, they had no concern for you and ripped the boxes open. And this is nothing to do with homophobia. No matter what your wife said, that they may think you don't want them there because they are gay. Hell, I'm also part of the community, and would never dream of acting like this in someone's home. You don't want them in your home because of the lack of respect they showed for your home and your contents. I would have given them as bill for all the damaged items, and don't let them back in. They destroyed yacht items, as your grandmother was dying. Who does that? Not the asshole. It isn't homophobic to expect a man to have basic human decency. That man crossed a line and I wouldn't want him in my house for dinner, let alone overnight. Insist they get a hotel. Hard stop. No compromise. Just my opinion, but I'm a total geek and love my collections and was horrified at how your guests violated your home. IDK how to explain to your wife because she obviously is not understanding what a big deal this is. She thinks it is, just some toys, and, not a problem. She is wrong however. That dude crossed a line. Good luck explaining the obvious to your wife. I'm confused. What was the significance of the rabbit looking strange, the clothes in the living room, and the friends running into the spare room with towels? If the issue is the damage to your stuff in the spare room? Not the asshole. Why, in a conflict with gay people, does someone always jump to homophobia? I'm a big supporter of do whatever the hell you want since none of it affects me, but you don't get a free pass on bad behavior because they may think you're homophobic. Sexuality has nothing to do with it, like you said. I don't know much about collectibles, but they probably cost you money by opening that box too. Not the asshole. Your wife is cool with someone having sex in her living room where a rabbit is involved. Why on earth would you want that back in your home? Not the asshole. Who opens stuff in someone else's house? Even if they don't know the value, why? Yeah, not the asshole. I think some of your details were extraneous. Boyfriend was in pain. Okay, but the idea that they opened your collectibles, damaged others, and undermined their value to you is one thing. That they invaded your privacy is a whole other problem. I think you're absolutely right to not trust them staying in your home. I didn't see where you received an apology for the invasion, for example. Your wife's taking the wrong side here. If they had damaged something meaningful and valuable to her, I don't know that she'd be suggesting you're homophobic. That said, I was terrified you were going to say they used one of your toys as an insertable, which would have been a horrible abuse of trust. Am I the asshole for blowing up on my mom for lying about having cancer? Okay, so this is going to sound crazy, I know. I can't really believe it myself. When I, 20 female, was 12, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was a huge shock for me and a pretty rough time. My mom needed very aggressive treatment the first year, chemo and multiple surgeries. After that it got better at first, but there were still a lot of times I thought she's not going to make it. But thank God she did. Nevertheless, the last 8 years have been a lot of ups and downs, and there were many scares, where I thought she was going to die because the cancer came back. I tried to help her where I could and even moved back in with her when the pandemic started, so she's not alone and I could support her with housework and other things. Now the last few days she's been telling me that she felt worse again and needs to go to the doctor again, as maybe her cancer got worse. Usually she always makes her doctor's appointments for herself and goes alone or with her best friend. I offered many times to drive her, but she said she doesn't want me there as it would be too much of a burden for me. But since the last few days she's been feeling worse and was sleeping a lot, I wanted to do her a favor and called the doctor's office to make an appointment for her. The secretary at the office got really confused and said my mom hasn't been a patient there for 7 years. I thought it has to be an error, so I spoke to the doctor on the phone and he confirmed that he had treated my mom 8 years ago for 1 year, but she's been in remission ever since. I couldn't believe what he said because I thought my mom hasn't been stable in these last 7 years and has never been in remission for a long time. I went to my mother and asked her about it, as I thought it has to be a misunderstanding. Well, turns out, she's really been in remission for 7 years now and is perfectly healthy. She just faked still having cancer the last 7 years because according to her it is her coping mechanism for almost dying. After she told me all of that, I completely lost it. I said some things I didn't really mean and made her cry, which I now regret. But she put me through hell the last 7 years, as I thought so many times I'd lose my mom and was worried sick. I mean, I get that having cancer and needing chemo is very traumatic, but I don't think it's an excuse to lie 7 years about it to your own child. And I don't really know how to proceed with our relationship from this point on. There's just no trust anymore and I feel kind of robbed of 7 years of my childhood. Because it was all on me to care for her. My father left before I was born and I have no close relatives. Edit. To all people asking about HIPAA violation. My mom signed a document, not a release that expires, but a patient decree that is valid until you change SMTH, revoke it or die. Which states that the doctors are allowed to discuss medical info with me. I have the same thing for my mom, that the doctors can discuss my medical info with her. I probably should change that now. I don't even know if these things exist in the US, but I live in Europe so there are probably some differences. Also, the doctor can access my mom's file digitally when I give him her health insurance number. The file can be updated by all doctors she goes to. She went to her primary care doctor for checkups. That's why the doctor was so surprised I asked for an urgent appointment, because in his file it was noted that my mom was in remission for 7 years. It's also noted in the file that I'm allowed to receive medical info. I don't know if the doctor made a mistake by telling me this on the phone without identification. I haven't really thought about that, but he did call my mom a lot of times to discuss some test results when she actually was sick, and she never had to identify herself. Or maybe telling them her health insurance number was enough of identification? I really don't know. To all the people not believing me and thinking this is a fake. That's okay. I know how insane the whole story sounds. I'm hardly believing it myself. Not the asshole. Your mom's situation is light years beyond Reddit's pay grade. She needs a therapist ASAP. Like none of what you've just said indicates that she is okay mentally even though her cancer is in remission. You are totally okay to be pissed about being lied to like that. You made major life decisions to take care of your mother, to be sure you were supportive and there for her. Only to find out that she's been lying to you about what's going on for 7 long years. You may also need some therapy. Not because you're wrong but because that is damaging as hell to go through and you deserve space to be angry and sad. And yes, happy your mom doesn't have cancer but deeply upset about the way you've been manipulated and lied to. She just faked still having cancer the last 7 years because according to her it is her coping mechanism for almost dying. It's like saying coping with the war is to have your room filled with guns. I feel like your mom had more motives than just a coping mechanism. I see a lot of ways she could have used her fake cancer to manipulate you, and take advantage of other people. Not the asshole op. For 7 years she lied straight to your face and made you worry like hell. That office needs to be reported. They were not legally allowed to give you any information on your mother's health. Not the asshole. Sounds like Munchausen syndrome. I probably spelled that wrong. Oh. Wow. Not the asshole. This is a huge form of betrayal and manipulation. There is literally no excuse to pretend you are on the verge of dying for 7 years, and she likely did this for the attention. A coping mechanism? Unlikely. I'm so sorry for what you've gone through. You might want to consider going NC for a while and letting all of these emotions you're rightfully feeling work themselves through. Not the asshole. 2 of my kiddos are 12 and 16. They are already going through so much during these tough teen years, but adding in that type of lying. Lord, you were robbed of a good childhood and a great mother-daughter relationship, and that just sucks. On one hand, yay, your mom is physically healthy. On the other hand, your mom is not mentally healthy. She took advantage of your kindness and that is going to take time to get past. Go. Take advantage of freedom while your mom gets the help she needs. Go on vacation with some girlfriends. Have the fun that you probably missed out on. Enjoy your own life. And then come back and try to repair your mother-daughter relationship if you so choose to do. That part is completely up to you and her though. Good luck. I don't believe this story. Doctors do get on the phone and disclose confidential medical information to third parties, without explicit instructions. It simply does not happen. Not the asshole. Wow. I'm a little bit at a loss for words with this story. I'm sorry your mom did that to you. She sounds like she needs to talk to someone about this to get a better coping strategy. Am I the asshole, are we, for not letting our nephew and his pregnant girlfriend live in our pool house? I'll try to brief. 6-ish months ago, my sil and her hubs were killed in a car accident. It was obviously super tragic and they were survived by my 17-year-old, 16 at the time, nephew, N. After my sil and brother-in-law passed away, N came to live with my husband, me, and our 8-year-old son. Obviously this has been an extremely hard time on N. He's been going to therapy weekly and attends group grief therapy once a month at the same place, but not same group, leader, as my husband. N has been dating his girlfriend, R, for about 10 months since a little bit before his parents died. They don't cause issues, they pretty much follow the rules. We've talked to both of them about safe sex, and honestly R helped him a lot after his parents' accident. N is a generally very good kid even in his grief. R isn't a bad kid either. She has decent grades, plays sports, and volunteers and is generally well-mannered. Her family life hasn't been the best though, so she spends a lot of her time at our house. She's stayed the night a few times but we've put her up in the extra bedroom because we didn't think 16 yo should be sharing. N and R came to us last week and let us know that R is pregnant. They're adamant they used condoms but she's not on BC because her parents wouldn't let her be. They told R's parents and they kicked her out of their house. Of course we told her she could stay with us and semi-figured things out on the short term. Hubs and I talked it all out and looked at finances, and while comfortable, we can't really take on an extra person. We already took on N, plus a newborn without major sacrifices on our and our son's part, which doesn't feel fair to him. We sat down with N and R again to ask their plans. Apparently one of my ILs made them believe they were going to be moving into our pool house rent, utility-free, which was previously set up as an apartment but is now my art studio and has been since before N came to live with us. And that I would take care of the baby while they went to school. I am a teacher, I work the same hours as they go to school. We corrected them, let them know they were still welcome to stay here but in their own rooms once they graduated HS and or gotten a GED, we'd revisit sleeping arrangements for them plus the baby. We said we wouldn't charge rent but they would need to find a way to provide whatever they needed for their child. We'd help by getting their car seat system and that was all. Formula, wipes, childcare, etc. were all on them to figure out. Now N, R, and all of husband's family are in an uproar about it, saying they're kids and can't possibly go to HS and raise a child. We said they should have thought about that sooner then if they couldn't afford a baby. So AWTA? ETA. I hope this is okay to add a little thing. I am reading all of your comments and replying as much as I can. I will say this: I've already told my husband and both N and R that they all have 24 hours to cool off and think about everything, and then we're sitting down again as adults to discuss it. My adult daughter is actually in town as a coincidence. The trip was planned back in January and we'll be taking our 8-year-old out for dinner, movies and ice cream tomorrow evening to help facilitate this. The 8-year-old doesn't have much of an idea of what's going on. He's been doing a summer camp during the days at the aquarium, so he's thankfully been out of the house for these convos. I've nixed the topic around him and he doesn't have his own phone or social media, so my IL's only contact with him is through my husband and I or our landline. I'm trying my best to handle this situation with as much love and grace as I can. Not the asshole. Those in-laws are pretty free about spending your money. I think a subtle and nuanced reply, I'm thinking, fuck off until you're ready to help, is appropriate. This is a very common situation that arises on this sub. Your in-laws do not care about your nephew or his baby and GF. All they care about is that they don't have to support them themselves. Stop taking their calls. Everyone sucks here. info. Why is no one in this story talking about abortion? This is a 16-year-old FFS. And with the assuming free place to live business, these kids clearly don't have their expectations firmly in the real world. Will one of the adults in their lives please point them toward some harsh truths? Not the asshole. From what you said, you are still providing shelter and love and support, just under your own rules and within your ability. I think your parameters are reasonable and generous. Whether or not they used condoms or BC or anything, pregnancy is a possibility for them no matter what, so I don't think it's unfair that they're asked to provide in part for the life that they created. Not the asshole. The asshole in this situation are the in-laws who made promises to 2 kids that should have never been made. Oh, and the girlfriend's parents are assholes for kicking her out. I don't think you're the assholes for struggling with the idea of taking full responsibility for 2 more dependents who aren't your children, but I do think you haven't considered the full scope of help available though, because R is a minor. And she might qualify for assistance for things like childcare because of her income level, which at this point is nil. And yeah, condoms under typical use have a failure rate of about 15%. Skeptical smiley face. Which is similar for the pill, to be honest. Published effective rates are usually for perfect use every time. Not the asshole. They chose to have sex, they chose to keep the baby, they need to step up. Get jobs and pay for things, that's what parents do. They can't fly by scot-free and expect you to take it all on. The in-laws can all happily take them in if they so feel. Someone else should pay for their actions. Has anyone considered termination or adoption? Not the asshole. It's time that everyone in the family that are mad stand up and take them in. I'm gonna say no assholes here, except the relatives. They're kids who got into a bad situation. And it's great you're helping them get out of it as best you can. Honestly, the separate sleeping arrangements feels a bit foolish at this point. If they're having a baby, and they say that they have been using protection even if it failed, that ship has sailed. They've had sex and it'll continue to happen regardless of GED status. Best thing you can do it, since she's been thrown out anyway, is help her get better birth control in future.